A huge thank you to Patreon Biophile for suggesting today's video topic. If you want to suggest a topic for next Wednesday's Name Explain video, all you have to do is support Name Explain on Patreon for $1 a month. Find out more by visiting patreon.com/nameexplain, which will be linked down below. Anyway, most countries on our planet have a navy of some kind. Navies are one of the major arms of any nation's armed forces. Where the army tends to take control of the land and the air force the skies, the navy has water as their domain, with huge ships to traverse the world's oceans, and even submarines to voyage below it. I actually live somewhere with a huge naval presence, and literally every other person I know is employed by the navy in some way, shape or form. Navies, like many other branches of the armed forces, tend to have all kinds of iconography linked with them, from emblems to music. Navies, however, might take this a step further than any other branch of the armed forces, as they have a colour all to themselves. Navy blue is an incredibly dark shade of blue, bordering on black in some cases. It's seen on navy uniforms around the world, though perhaps it's most linked to the navies of the UK and USA, though I also read the US's navy blue is actually black, so who knows. Navy blue, however, has also found itself at home outside of military use, becoming a popular colour for clothes ranging from suits to socks. The colour is even simply known as just navy. To many, the word navy is just as linked with this shade of blue as it is this water-based military. This raises a question for me. Which one was named navy first? Was the military arm named after the colour, or was the colour named after the military arm? Well, despite the fact that navy blue as a colour is way older than any kind of armed forces, seriously, like a very dark blue must have existed since the dawn of time, right? It seems that this name first belonged to the water-based armed forces. The word navy comes from very old roots. It's believed to come from the Latin navis, meaning ship, which became navire in Old French, and finally settled as navy in modern English. For those wondering, the word nave, as in the part of the church, comes from this same root too, as they were thought to be a similar shape to a ship. Naval, as in a belly button, seemingly has no etymological link to the navy, however. It just sounds similar to naval, the adjective form of navy. And now that I think about it, and this isn't scripted, it probably has links to navigation too. Navy probably gave us navigation as well. I should have read that in the script, but here's me rambling on about it anyway. Let's carry on. Navies, or more broadly the concept of water-based warfare, have been around for a staggeringly long time. The ancient Egyptians had a navy. The Romans had a navy. The Chinese in the far past had a navy. The Portuguese navy is seen as the oldest continually serving navy still around to this day, founded in the 12th century. Navies have worn all kinds of colours throughout history. It was in just the mid-18th century that a navy decided to adopt a shade of dark blue as their primary colour, with the first navy to do this being the navy of my home nation, the UK's Royal Navy. What exactly happened during the 18th century that made this navy pick a dark shade of blue as their colour of choice? Well, India happened. It was during this period of history that the large part of Asia, which now houses the nation we call India, as well as other smaller nations, came onto the radar of the British. By this point, Britain had lost many of its holdings across the world. The land they had in North America, for example, had kicked them out and was now the USA. Britain, however, still hungered for power and faraway lands to harvest for goods and grow cash crops in. This is why their eyes landed on India. They started to sink their teeth into India in the 18th century, gaining power there in drips and drabs, before gaining complete rule of the land in 1858. This gave Britain full control over India, and the empire had a huge influence on the land. In fact, Britain's influence on India is something I talk about in great detail in my upcoming book, Immigrant Tongues, exploring how languages moved, evolved, and defined us. The book is all about the migrations languages have taken across our globe, and the chapter on English in India is actually one of the largest in the entire book. It's a deep dive into not only how English arrived in India and changed there, but also covers the languages spoken natively in the land and how they have changed too. It's a fascinating tale and just one of the many highlighted in the new book. It's releasing on the 12th of August this year and is available to pre-order now, with links down below. But back to the subject at hand. Something the British came across during their exploits in India, as they harvest the land for anything they deemed of value, was a flower which has the long fancy name of Indigofera tinctoria, which thankfully is more commonly known as just true indigo. Aside from just looking pretty, the flower proved to be incredibly useful too. It was used to produce an incredible shade of blue dye, one that had a dark, rich hue. We take colours for granted now, but in the past, making clothes or paints in specific colours was an incredible challenge. As the result resources needed to make certain colors could prove hard to come by. Blue is one of those colors that doesn't occur all that much in nature, especially in botany, which was a key source of finding these kinds of colors. Prior to finding true indigo for themselves, Britain made blue dye out of a plant called woad. This got the job done, but it proved time consuming. The plant only made small quantities of dye, and it wasn't the most durable of things when applied to clothing. This new true indigo meanwhile produced vast quantities of a rich blue dye, which was far tougher and longer lasting on clothing. True indigo was a revelation to the Brits. While the plant had been used as a dye across Europe in the past, it was here that it made a huge splash in the UK. Many parts of Britain were actually hesitant to use this dye, none more so than the woadmen, the people who made dyes with woad. They brandished true indigo as the devil's food, claiming it was poisonous and even called it the devil dye. I have no idea where all this hate for the dye came from, but I imagine it was just them being scared about losing their way of life to a new thing, something that scared humans for most of history. And like most cases of this history, the new, easier way of doing things became the standard. It became way more popular to create blue dye with true indigo as opposed to woad, and woad-based dyes fell to the wayside. Of course, a key adopter of this new dark blue was the Royal Navy. Prior to this, the key colour of this Navy's uniform was white, and of course white is still seen throughout various Navy uniforms. So why exactly did they swap white for blue? Was it a symbolic choice? Blue to represent the waves they quote-unquote ruled over? Well, no. Dark blue became the colour of choice for the Navy, not for any kind of symbolic reason, but simply down to the fact that it was far easier to manage dark blue clothes at sea than pure white ones. Being in the Navy can get kind of messy, putting it nicely. From the usual stains you get in battle, to being battered by the salty sea, to even making a mess all over yourself while eating in a storm or something. When you realise this, it seems kind of silly to have all these people who will inevitably get very messy wear white. To combat this mess, it makes sense to have Navy officers wear darker colours. Colours that wouldn't show blood or food stains as clearly. Yeah, this is the main reason why the Navy switched from white to blue. It had no deeper meaning. It was just to stop everyone looking mucky all the time. Kind of like having a dark coloured sofa when you have a dog with dark fur. The Navy was seemingly the first to adopt the shade of blue produced by true indigo in a big way, and the colour became heavily linked with them. So much so that the Navy gave it the name of marine blue. Yeah, seemingly the Navy were modest enough to not name it after themselves. Yet despite this, the name of marine blue didn't really catch on for this shade of the colour. It became way more commonly referred to as navy blue. I imagine this was done by people not actually in the Navy, but slowly this title became so popular that the Navy themselves adopted it too. The first written evidence we have of navy blue in English comes from 1780, which ties into this dye becoming popular in the 18th century. It would however take over 100 years for someone to drop the blue part from the name and just use navy when referencing the colour, as our earliest written evidence of this comes from 1896. What this shows us, however, is that for well over 200 years now, this shade of blue has been deeply linked to the Navy, and the name of this arm of the armed forces has become its go-to moniker. And of course, as mentioned, the title has expanded beyond just its military use, and the colour is referred to as navy regardless of who is wearing it. Whether that be a business person in a navy suit running for their train, or someone who accidentally put on a black and navy blue sock while half awake in the morning. But as also mentioned, this dark blue would have existed way before the concept of the Navy was even a thing, seen in our skies and of course our seas. So the final question we need to answer is, what was navy blue called before the Navy was even a thing? Well, it was probably just called blue, or maybe dark blue. Honestly, colours having more creative names is an invention of more recent centuries. In the past, we used really basic terms for colours. Orange, for example, was simply dubbed yellow-red for the longest time in English, before we got our hands on a certain fruit. For so long, what we now call navy blue was most likely just called blue, along with the many other shades of blue out there. And also, if you've been watching this video and thinking to yourself, I don't remember navy blue being that dark, then that's probably because you were gaslit by Crayola for your entire childhood into thinking this more rich blue they call navy blue is what the colour actually looks like. Name Explain depends on viewers like yourself supporting the channel financially on Patreon, so a huge thank you to everyone who does. Donating just $1 a month helps the channel amazingly and gets you bonuses including ad-free videos, exclusive content, the power to request ideas to be made into actual Name Explain videos, and your name at the end of the video with all these awesome people. Visit patreon.com/NameExplain or click the link down below to find out how you too can support the channel. Thank you. Thanks for reaching the end of the video. Why not watch another and subscribe to keep up to date on all things Name Explain. You can find myself on Instagram where I'm NameExplainYT and join the Facebook group Friends of Name Explain to talk with myself and other name nerds. All that will be linked down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and once again, thank you all so much.